Picture the scene for just a moment. We are dropping right into the heart of the California desert for the legendary Indian Wells, the absolute pinnacle of global tennis. This is the sacred ground where legends are forged and fantasies become reality. The stadium is electric, a sea of roaring fans sitting on the absolute edge of their seats. In one corner stands the sheer force of nature herself, 19-year-old American sensation Coco Gauff, practically ruling the women's circuit right now. Across the net waits the ultimate dark horse, Alex Eala, a fierce young challenger hailing from the Philippines. The tension in the arena is thick enough to cut with a knife. Millions are tuned in, bracing for an absolute slugfest. Yet, right out of the gate, the narrative takes a wildly bizarre turn. We are not just talking about a simple victory here. This is a seismic shockwave that utterly paralyzes the sporting community. A clash that kicked off with explosive energy rapidly deteriorates into a crushing blend of sheer agony and monumental glory. The powerhouse herself, Coco Gauff, suddenly pulls the plug in the middle of the battle, sidelined by a devastating physical breakdown. Faster than a lightning strike, Alex Eala snatches the crown, capitalizing on the chaos in a genuinely mind-blowing fashion. Forget everything you know about a standard day on the court. You are witnessing a masterclass in survival, striking when the iron is hot, and navigating the terrifyingly delicate reality of professional athletics. This is a brutal reminder of how a single pulled muscle can shatter a dynasty while simultaneously handing the keys to the kingdom to a hungry rookie waiting in the wings. Lock in, because this saga is going to completely rewire your perspective on the game. The Indian Wells Open is an absolute institution, famous for its scorching oasis vibes and unforgiving concrete surfaces that routinely devour even the toughest veterans. It serves as the ultimate proving ground where global titans clash to cement their immortal status. However, on that strangely charged afternoon in 2026, the atmosphere felt incredibly heavy. Every single person was fixated on the impending bloodbath between Alex Eala and Coco Gauff. Gauff was practically tennis royalty by this point, representing the gold standard for unstoppable teenage phenomenons. She was the very definition of raw, relentless ambition. Ever since she kicked the door down at Wimbledon 2019 by dismantling Venus Williams, she had the entire globe wrapped around her finger. At barely 19 years of age, she was already the terrifying final boss, standing in the way of almost every single Grand Slam trophy. Opponents practically trembled at her freakish agility, a lethal forehand that cracked like a whip, and a serve that could blast through a brick wall. Meanwhile, Alex Eala was operating completely off the grid, a silent assassin slowly making a massive name for herself in the shadows of the professional circuit. At just 18 years old, she had been casually dropping jaws in the minor leagues, hinting she was more than ready to run with the big dogs. She did not rely on overwhelming brute force. Instead, she was a total chess master, grinding opponents to dust from the back of the court with calculated genius. Ice ran through her veins when the pressure cooked. Eala already had some serious scalps on her belt, but this was her golden ticket to silence the doubters under the brightest lights imaginable. The opening sequence was pure, unadulterated fireworks. You instantly knew you were watching a classic unfold. Gauff came out swinging like a heavyweight champion, exactly as scripted, looking icy and flawlessly calibrated. Yet, in a twist that sent shockwaves through the stands, it was the Filipino teen who grabbed the steering wheel right away. Eala was painting the lines with absolute perfection, her serve dropping like a guided missile. She stalked her prey with terrifying patience, pulling the trigger only when the opening was fatal and the strategy was pure magic. The underdog swelled into an absolute giant with each rally, while Gauff looked like she was suddenly trying to run through mud. The usually unflappable American was visibly rattling. Her signature killer instinct vanished into thin air. Easy putaways sailed wide, and those heavy, booming ground strokes felt strangely hollow. Snatching an early break, Eala rocketed ahead to a commanding 2-0 advantage. Deep into that opening frame, the truth was undeniable. Eala was throwing down the performance of a lifetime. The young challenger turned the baseline into her personal playground, dragging Gauff corner to corner like a ragdoll. Desperation kicked in as the favorite frantically clawed for a foothold, but the unforced errors just kept snowballing out of control. Before anyone could blink, Eala had closed out a jaw-dropping 6-2 massacre. The pundits were completely blindsided, but absolutely nothing about this felt like a fluke. She arrived with a razor-sharp game plan and was executing it flawlessly. The roaring crowd and the superstar across the net did not faze her one bit. Suddenly, The whole world realized the prodigy from Manila was about to become the main character. Then came the tragedy, a brutal, agonizing twist of the knife. Stepping into the second act, the very air inside the stadium turned sour. The chaotic roar of the spectators fizzled out into a wave of nervous, confused whispers. Gauff, the undisputed queen of the tournament, was clearly falling apart. And this was no simple cramp. She kept grabbing at her dominant hand after every violent swing, her expression twisting into pure agony. It crept in subtly, at first a wince here, a delayed step there. Soon enough, the brutal reality set in. The American superstar was practically fighting on one leg, derailed by a severe physical breakdown. In this sport, damaging your hitting hand is practically a death sentence. You lose the grip, your serve falls apart, and your pinpoint accuracy goes entirely out the window. The terrifying firepower that built Gauff's entire empire had been instantly, brutally silenced. That signature, blistering forehand of hers had completely vanished into thin air. The power drained from her deliveries, and her baseline lasers devolved into erratic misfires. Across the net, Eala remained absolute ice, ruthlessly exploiting every crack in her wounded opponent's armor. Act 2 offered zero relief from the nightmare. The challenger shattered the American service game yet again, sprinting effortlessly to a 2-love advantage. A dark cloud had settled over the stadium, making it painfully obvious that the young phenomenon was battling physical demons nobody had seen coming. In these brutal split seconds, the sport reveals its true nature, a theater capable of delivering both soaring triumphs and gut-wrenching tragedies. You could almost feel her silent agony. Being stripped of the physical tools needed to compete at the absolute pinnacle is a nightmare for any athlete. Her California desert fantasies evaporated in an instant. Yet, the far heavier toll was the invisible psychological damage inflicted by her sudden physical betrayal. Throwing in the towel is an utterly devastating pill to swallow for a fierce, youthful competitor whose entire identity revolves around fighting to the bitter end. Then came the breaking point. Fighting back tears of sheer frustration, the superstar glanced toward the chair and waved the white flag. Soul-crushed, she walked away from the baseline, officially bowing out due to the excruciating damage wreaking havoc on her racket hand. The crowd collectively groaned in sympathy. Thousands of spectators craving an epic, 3-set war were instantly left with a hollow, lingering phantom of a match. Pacing quietly behind the opposite baseline, Alex absorbed the reality of her triumph. However, there was no triumphant roar or fist pump. She had genuinely dominated the rallies, but claiming victory via an opponent's physical collapse felt decidedly hollow. She successfully etched her name into the winner's circle, though her breakthrough was shadowed entirely by the medical disaster across the net. This was absolutely not the storybook ending the rising talent had visualized. Still, elite athletics mirrors the chaos of life. Legends are forged by grasping whatever wild cards fate decides to deal. And the young challenger did not let the strange atmosphere derail her focus for a second. She locked into the bizarre reality, kept her nerves strictly in check, and punched her ticket to the next phase. Now, dark questions swirl around the fallen American's immediate destiny. A massive shadow suddenly looms over the rest of the prodigy's year. Any physical damage is cruel, but wrist and grip ailments are notorious career killers in a sport demanding violent racket acceleration. 2026 was wildly anticipated as her absolute coronation era among the immortals. Today, that golden narrative has violently derailed into an ocean of question marks. The lone silver lining hidden in the darkness? This superstar has the heart of a pure warrior. She has forged a bulletproof reputation for eating adversity for breakfast. If there is a single soul capable of rising from these ashes, she is the one. Her psychological armor is thick enough to withstand the grueling, isolated rehabilitation trenches that await her. Armed with elite medical guidance and time, she is destined to return as a much more dangerous predator. The entire sporting globe will be holding its breath for her comeback tour. Will these damaged tendons permanently slam the brakes on her legacy, or will the fiery hunger of recovery launch her into the stratosphere? The calendar alone holds those answers, but stamp this in stone. The American phenom is barely getting started. Meanwhile, Alex is furiously writing her own origin story. Securing a win today stands as an absolute earthquake in her professional timeline. Dethroning royalty automatically shoves a player center stage, regardless of asterisks or medical timeouts. The ending lacked storybook perfection, yet the rookie's ice-cold killer instinct, during the chaos, proved she possesses the DNA required to survive the major leagues. Her weaponry does not rely on brute force. Instead, she slowly suffocates targets with relentless precision, deep thinking, and unbreakable rhythms. Rather than blowing rivals off the court with sheer velocity, she orchestrates brilliant tactical traps, commanding the clay like a seasoned veteran trapped in a rookie's body. Out there today, she put on a masterclass of psychological warfare, letting her incredible court IQ exploit the exact second the American's physical frame shattered. Surviving the heat of the California desert is guaranteed to launch her ranking into the terrifyingly competitive upper brackets of the women's tour. It was a roaring declaration that she demands a seat at the elite table. Beyond her personal glory, it signaled a terrifying tidal wave of hungry prodigies crashing onto the circuit. Lethal tacticians like her are the vanguards of a brand new era, actively rewriting the blueprint of professional court domination. From this moment forward, every pundit and fan will track her every move, desperate to see how high her ceiling truly goes. This desert showdown will forever live in infamy as a chaotic cocktail of sudden tragedy, bizarre momentum swings, and the fiery birth of a potential legend. The superstar's shattered hand and tearful retreat ripped hearts out, yet brutally showcased how fast the athletic gods can steal everything away. Physical destruction is the ultimate ghost haunting every locker room, possessing the dark power to rewrite legacies in the blink of an eye. For the triumphant challenger, these bizarre couple of hours serve as the ultimate launching pad for her pro journey. She stared destiny down, grabbed the chaotic momentum by the throat, and violently carved her name into the next bracket. The marathon to greatness has only just started, but surviving the fire of this tournament confirms she fears absolutely nobody. This was far more than two athletes trading baseline blows. It evolved into a brutal theater piece, highlighting the fragile glass reality of health, the unbreakable titanium of willpower, and the chaotic, shifting tides of athletic glory. Now, as the victor walks out of the shadows and into the blinding flashbulbs, millions wait with bated breath to discover the next thrilling chapter this lethal young phenomenon decides to write.